The process of decorating your living room can oftentimes feel very daunting. It is, after all, one of the largest and most important areas of the home. In this video, I'll go through the most common mistakes people make when designing their living rooms, as well as some of my best design tips so you can elevate your living room. Mistake 1. Purchasing all your furniture from one place and only one place. What may seem like a really smart, time-efficient way to get a living room design that is cohesive, purchasing every piece of furniture from one place and only one place is not a good idea at all. Let me tell you why. Because your living room will look like a showroom, a space that is generally boring and lacks personality. Now, if that is the look you want and you're happy with it, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for most people, myself included, I don't like the idea of my house looking like a showroom after spending thousands of dollars on furniture. Instead, try to combine different pieces from various places that are still within the same theme so it will look unified, but also interesting at the same time. For example, you may find a coffee table, side table, and TV unit in a similar style, but in different finishes to create contrast and heighten visual interest. While it takes more effort to piece together items from various shops, having variety in your living room will make it feel rich and layered. Personally, I like to browse for inspiration on Pinterest or popular designers like Studio McGee to see how they create a unified but interesting look by using a neutral color or pieces with similar aesthetics that complement each other. If you want to go deeper on this, I have a video on how to pick the right furniture for your space, which I'll link down below in the description box. Another reason why you don't want to buy everything from one single line of furniture is that it prevents you from developing the room over time. If you have to replace one piece of furniture, you might find it difficult to go back and purchase from the same furniture line, whether they're out of stock or no longer in production. It is much better to have furniture from lots of different places to not only have a room that has personality, but the flexibility to complete or upgrade your room over time. Before I continue, I wanted to briefly thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Earlier in my YouTube journey, I took the YouTube Success class by MKBHD, which helped me massively in understanding and creating better content. In it, he goes through the process of creating a YouTube video, from scripting and storyboarding, all the way to shooting and editing. You can also take classes on interior design, photography, typography, and many more. The best part about Skillshare is that it is curated specifically for learning. No ads, no distractions, and constant addition of new premium classes so you can just follow wherever your creativity takes you. The first 1,000 people to use the link on my description box will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Mistake 2. Hanging artworks and mounting TVs too high. Another common mistake I often see people make when decorating their living rooms is hanging their artworks or mounting their TVs too high. Not only does it result in an awkward gap on the wall, but you could end up injuring your neck by looking up at the TV or artwork at an awkward angle. As you can imagine, it is not only uncomfortable, but it looks pretty ridiculous as a whole. Generally, artwork should be hung at eye level, which is roughly 150 centimeters from the center of the artwork to the floor. If you're hanging your art above a furniture, it should be roughly 10 to 15 centimeters above the piece. However, if the art is going above a sofa, it should be approximately 15 to 20 centimeters above it, as you don't want the artwork to hit your head. There are some exceptions to this rule. Say, if you're a really tall person, then you can consider hanging your art slightly higher. Or if your ceilings are really low, you can consider hanging your art lower to help engage the whole space. The goal here is to have the artwork and the piece of furniture relate to each other, and that they're close enough to each other so that they'll engage the whole wall together as a unit. Now, what about the gallery wall or multiple art pieces? Then you should treat the whole collection as a singular artwork. Locate the center of the collection and follow the same hanging rules that you would follow as if it were a singular artwork, to ensure that they are hung at the correct height. Hanging multiple art pieces is a lot more difficult than one artwork, so it is important to plan before hanging. A hack that I like to use is to plan with painter's tape or cut pieces of paper into the sizes of the artworks and stick them on the wall before installing. This way, you can play around with the configuration of the artworks whilst also ensuring that they are going to be hung at the correct height. As for TVs, the biggest mistake people make is mounting them above a fireplace or mantle, which results in a TV that is too high. If you're really short on space and have to have one above your fireplace, consider getting something like a mantle mount which you can adjust to eye level. You should follow the same eye level rule as an artwork when mounting a TV. The TV should roughly be at eye level when you're sitting on your couch. Mistake 3. Cramming in too much furniture. Another mistake I often see in living rooms is not leaving enough space between furniture pieces. When furniture items are too close together, it creates a cramped atmosphere that is visually uncomfortable. Not to mention, it is also physically uncomfortable when you have to squeeze in between chairs. Luckily, the solution here is simple. Just make sure that there is enough space between pieces of furniture so people can easily get around. The general guideline is to leave roughly 75 to 90 centimeters walkway between large pieces if your living room allows for it, or at least 45 to 60 centimeters if your space is smaller. Remember that you're building a room for people to live in, so your number one goal is to design a space that you and your guests can be comfortable in. In addition to making a space physically uncomfortable, not leaving enough space in a room can make it look cluttered and ultimately negatively affect the atmosphere of the room. Negative space is a very important concept in design, as it brings balance to the space and enables our eyes to focus on specific objects and furniture within a room. If a room has too much furniture or decor, our eyes will have trouble focusing, which creates a cluttered feeling to the room that can be suffocating. Another way that people often make their living room feel cramped and cluttered without realizing it is by using furniture that is too big for the space. You mainly see this when people purchase lounges that are too large for the room. For example, a massive recliner lounge when a two-seater would have been sufficient for the space. Furniture that is too large for a living room is going to look heavy and suffocating, the opposite of an inviting, comfortable, and relaxing space which we want our living room to be. Mistake 4. Rugs that are too small. While huge rugs can be very expensive, having a rug that is too small can actually do more damage than good. Rugs that are too small feel extremely awkward and can make the living room feel smaller. Sometimes people use rugs that are so small that they look like bath mats. Generally, you'll want a rug in a living room to ground the whole seating around it. This can be done in two ways, either by having the front two legs on the sofa and side chair on the rug, or by having all furniture legs on the rug. The first option will generally cost less and is often the more popular choice for most of us who live in apartments or smaller spaces. Another go-to rule is to have your rug at least 15 centimeters wider than your sofa on both sides. If you have a big and grand living room, the latter will create a more dramatic look, so make sure to take out your tape measure before making a purchase. Mistake 5. Artworks that are too small. Another thing you should avoid is having an artwork that is too small for the space. This tends to cheapen the look of the space and makes your eyes gravitate towards the large blank space around it. If you're hanging art above a sofa or console, try to aim for a piece that is half to two-thirds of the width of the furniture below it. If cost is not a problem, art that is slightly bigger is always better than smaller. So if you're in doubt, it is always safe to go bigger. Do plan ahead. While it does take some time to plan rather than just sticking out random pieces, remember that you'll be spending a significant amount of money and you'll be the one looking and living in the space on a daily basis. It is worth the time and effort to think about the design style that you want, collect some images and inspiration, take measurements, and have a budget in mind. By planning ahead, you can avoid the common mistake of buying lots of individual pieces and realizing when you get back home that they don't go together. When planning your living room, remember that repetition is what creates cohesion. If you repeat colors, patterns, textures, or shapes, it creates rhythm which results in cohesion. Incorporate these design elements into your plan. Do incorporate color or contrast. While a neutral color palette is often always a safe option, Adding some contrast through a pop of color will always make a space look much more elevated and balanced. If you have a favorite color in mind, try to incorporate several different shades, tints, or tones of the color like the various shades of greens and browns that you see here. A lot of people make the mistake of only using one shade of color instead of multiple, which will end up making the room look very one-dimensional. Nevertheless, if you do want to keep it neutral, a hint of black is always a safe option, as it will add a much needed contrast while keeping a balanced design. It doesn't have to be anything heavy. Even small little accents sprinkled throughout the space will make a huge difference. Do add greenery. Always try to add a splash of green in your living room. This may be an indoor plant, fall greenery, a flower bouquet, or a simple branch arrangement. This will infuse some life into your room, and the variety in shapes makes for a more visually appealing space. Do use multiple light sources in your living room. If you've watched some of my past makeovers, you'll know that I always put a huge emphasis on lighting. One source of lighting alone is not enough, especially if it's one of those ceiling boob lights. Try to mix and layer different types of lighting such as accent, task, and ambient light. If you have enough space, try to include both floor and table lamps. The variation in height will make your room look much more interesting and will balance the light throughout your room. It will also allow you to turn off that harsh ceiling light at night so you can enjoy a more relaxing atmosphere. I also have a video on how to light a space, which I have linked down below in the description box to help you properly light your living room. Designing and decorating your living room is a time-consuming yet gratifying and satisfying process. If you enjoyed this educational type video, let me know in the comment section below what topics you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.